Thanks for joining me. My name is Lon Shaver. I'm Vice President with Silvercorp Metals. And so we're known for as being a silver producer with a long history of production growth and financial performance. But really want to take a step back, because when we think of it in those terms, we're really just talking about the red box on this chart. Whereas when you think about Silvercorp, really we have three major assets that are contributing to our great asset value right now. So the first and the easy one is our cash position. And I have to thank my colleague for making my job easier today, because he spoke a lot about what we're going to talk about in this blue box, which is the value of our New Pacific position, given that we're a 28.3% shareholder. But stepping back, as touched upon, we do have cash of $200 million US. We pay a dividend, and as pointed out, we've been focused on shareholder returns in terms of that dividend, but also share buybacks. But I think of that cash as fuel for growth, and that's growth looking forwards in terms of new assets, new jurisdictions, and we're very active reviewing projects around the world. So if you actually take our current market cap of around $600 million US, you back off the cash at 200, the current market value of New Pacific at approximately 120, that means the market is paying, in terms of a look-through basis, $284 million for our mining assets. Now, those mining assets have an average analyst NAV of much greater than that at $575 million. Those assets have generated a four-quarter trailing operating cash flow of just under $100 million. And those assets have high quality. So we're a low-cost producer, and our most recent all-in sustaining cost to produce an ounce of silver was $825 US. The work we're doing at those mines has been drilling, and we've found more resources. It's led to production guidance increases in this year, but also going forward, we see our production growing from the 6 million ounce per year level to about 8 million ounces in our fiscal 2026. We're in the midst of constructing a new mill at our largest mining facility, and when we do, that'll increase our production capacity. And then lastly, we really couldn't be where we are if we didn't have a solid track record of ESG and engagement with the government and the community at our mine sites. So this just gives a bit of a snapshot in terms of our mining assets. So the Ying Mining District, it's the larger one, and that's in Henan Province. And it's actually 7 mines that feed into 2 milling facilities. The smaller mine, the GC mine, is in the south there that you can see. And it produces, just like Ying, 2 products. One is a lead concentrate containing our silver, and our zinc concentrate. And all together, in terms of the corporate history going back to when production began in 2006, we've produced over 87 million ounces of silver, over 1 billion pounds of lead zinc. And despite this production level, given the work that's been done to drill and identify new resources and reserves, we have a minimum 15-year mine life going forward. Now, one of the things about being in China is that there's some definite advantages, and one of those is that our concentrates are going to smelters, just like those of many of our peers, but we're right in country, and so we have closer access, less transportation issues to deliver those concentrates to the customers. We're also close to suppliers, so all the inputs, supplies, and materials that are needed to run a mine, we're right there in the middle of it. Lots of suppliers. We can get what we need easily. We've got a capable and disciplined workforce. The regulations for mining have been very stable, and obviously our 17-year track record shows that. And we do have a free market for our metal, so we're not beholden to anybody. We have commercial relationships with these smelter groups, but if we wanted, we could export their concentrates out of the country, although for those economic reasons I've described, that doesn't make a lot of sense. The profit and distribution scenario is very clear. There's a 25% tax rate, and we can dividend our cash flow out of the country after paying a withholding tax. And we're not the only foreign company that's operating in China. In 2021, foreign direct investment surged to $173 billion. And when you think about that, the way we operate as entities, in terms of our mines, we're significant employers, taxpayers, and contributors to the local economy. But the other thing that's very important to think about is that we're producing right on site those raw materials that are necessary for the rest of the export sector. So solar panels contain silver. Our silver is being fed into that industrial machine. Obviously we're producing lead and zinc, which are commodities used around the world. This slide really just highlights the fact that there's lots of other Western companies that have both manufacturing and revenue exposure to a significant degree in China. And really just being a mining company, we shouldn't really be singled out for any sort of different kind of treatment. Now, I talked about the silver production from very modest beginnings in the first year, at just under 2 million. We've grown to where we're tracking ahead of 6 million ounces of silver a year. And you can see that we're anticipating some growth, both in terms of the silver side and also with some additional gold credits converted to silver. The Ying mining district is that blue bar, and you can see that's the bulk of the silver production, and the GC mine is a smaller contributor to that overall mix. Now, I mentioned earlier about the asset quality. So in terms of looking at our peer group, we've tracked at a higher and more profitable EBITDA margin than our competitors. And a lot of this is driven off of the asset quality, which you can see is also highlighted by our industry-leading low-cost production at 825 in terms of the last quarter. So those two factors are what contribute to a great return on equity for the sector at just above 9%. But if you look back to what I showed on that first slide, this calculation really doesn't factor in the value in the cash and the investment position, which don't contribute to this calculation. So if we back those values out, our return on equity would be touching 20%. So that asset quality is what's given us a very attractive track record in terms of financial performance. And you can see from a quarterly adjusted net income, we've been profitable since 2014, other than one quarter. And it's also what contributes to our great free cash flow, which you can see on the right-hand side, which has been consistently positive, other than sometimes based on Chinese New Year in the first quarter, we do have a bit of a cash outflow, but that's really just due to that seasonality. Now, what has that led to in the market? Well, I think this chart really speaks for itself, that compared to our peer group in terms of those dominant silver producers, we really are valued at the attractive end of the spectrum, both from a price to earnings and price to cash flow standpoint, but even on an EV to ounce of silver and an EV to EBITDA. And I won't complicate it too much, but again, a lot of these numbers don't really factor in our cash and our investment position in the calculation, which is sort of like gravy on top of the financial performance that we've delivered. Despite that production history, we've continued to reinvest, and you can see that from the last technical report to the one we just published for Ying in September, we've been able to maintain our reserve and resource base, with reserves essentially being flat at 115 million ounces. That's included in the M&I, but then the inferred resources on top of that. So we expect to be mining here for many, many years. I don't really need to spend a lot of time on this slide because, as I mentioned, Andrew touched on it in his presentation for New Pacific. But obviously, New Pacific has 3 projects, catalyst-rich. We're seeing a few of those catalysts that have just come out, but we're looking forward to a very exciting year in 2023. And as the largest individual shareholder with a 28% stake, we're very excited to see the value creation that's going on at New Pacific. So just coming close to the end here, just wanted to touch on catalysts. So for our current fiscal year, we're seeing increased production compared to last year. We're continuing to drill aggressively. So 300,000 meters in a year isn't really a lot for us, given the rigs and the team that we have in place. And that's to extend mine life, add new resources, and also we've made some discoveries in terms of these other structures hosting gold within our silver mines. We're looking forward to getting a mining permit for a project that's a satellite to the Ying mining district, and we look to bring that into production using the milling facility at Ying. And as I mentioned, we're looking to expand that milling facility. We're in the midst of constructing a new 3,000 ton per day mill, and when that's up and running in a couple of years here, we'll be running at 5,000 tons per day. I didn't really touch on the BYP project, but that's a gold opportunity that we have in China. We're looking to get the permit for. And obviously, New Pacific, catalyst rich, and I can't predict when we might have any sort of acquisitions to grow the company, but we do have a very earnest effort year in and year out looking at projects. Quick slide just highlighting ESG is a buzzword. Well, as a company, we've been actually doing it more than we've been talking about it, but now we're talking about it as well. So we have lots of programs in place, and I'd say some very innovative programs to contribute to the local communities that we operate in. And just to kind of wrap up on the capital market side, you can see on the left our top 10 institutional holders. On the right-hand side, we're covered by 7 firms, 6 in Canada and 1 in the US. And from a shareholder breakdown, we're approximately 60% retail, with the balance held by institutions and insiders. As mentioned, we have a booth. Please drop by and follow up with any questions. We'd be happy to chat with you. Thank you.